Rolls-Royce is synonymous with luxury and opulence, crafting some of the world's most expensive cars. But the origins of this $7 billion empire are far from glamorous. Henry Royce, a boy who grew up in poverty with barely any formal education, founded the company with just $20 in his pocket. How did he transform such humble beginnings into a multi-million-dollar empire? Henry Royce was born in 1863 to James and Mary Royce, who ran a flour mill. By 1867, the family business went bankrupt, forcing them to move to London in search of work. At just 4 years old, Henry began working his first job, scaring birds on a farm for a few cents a week. His father found work at another flour mill, but the family remained in deep debt. When Henry was 9, his father's death worsened the family's financial struggles. Instead of attending school, Henry worked full-time, selling newspapers and delivering telegrams for the post office, earning only a few cents per delivery. Despite his efforts, the family's situation remained dire. His mother, still burdened by debt, sent Henry to live with an elderly couple who were also struggling financially. Many days, Henry's only meal was bread soaked in milk. This malnutrition, combined with the hard labor of his childhood, led to health problems that affected him for the rest of his life. By 15, Henry had completed only 1 year of formal education. His aunt, trying to help, provided the small fee required for him to join an apprenticeship program with the Great Northern Railway Company. This opportunity meant Henry had to relocate again. Although his aunt could afford the apprenticeship fee, she couldn't pay for his housing. Fortunately, Henry found a place to stay with George Yarrow, whose son was also an apprentice. George tutored the boys in tool use at night, and Henry, fascinated by the work, spent hours practicing. Despite his youth, he soon excelled, building beautifully crafted brass model wheelbarrows in Yarrow's garden shed. Henry's education may have been limited, but he had a remarkable talent for working with his hands and an incredible work ethic. Unfortunately, his aunt's financial support only lasted for 3 years, and Henry had to drop out of the apprenticeship. At 17, he began working for a tool-making company in Leeds, earning just 1 penny per hour. He later moved to the Electric Light and Power Company in Liverpool, where he worked harder and longer than anyone else, often skipping meals to tinker with electronics. After saving as much as he could from these jobs, Henry finally afforded night classes in electrical engineering at the City and Guilds Institute. By 19, these skills landed him his best job yet as chief electrician for the Maxim Weston Electric Company. Henry felt he was making progress, but in 1884, the company went under, leaving him unemployed once more. Determined to change his fate, Henry decided to start his own business. Despite his humble beginnings, he believed there had to be more to life, and he set out to become wealthy. He persuaded his friend and fellow engineer, Ernest Claremont, to join him. Together, they founded F.H. Royce & Company in 1884. With only $20 from Henry and $50 from Ernest, they pooled their savings and started making electric fittings. They rented a building at 1A Cook Street in Manchester, living in a single room above the shop. Barely able to afford food, they lived on sandwiches. The odds of success were slim, but Henry, as always, worked harder than anyone else. He was determined that everything he made would be better than the competition. After much testing, they created their first successful product, the electric doorbell. The doorbells sold quickly, and Henry often worked late into the night to meet demand. With the profits, they expanded into more ambitious projects, like generators and even an electric crane. Each year their business grew, and so did their profits. By 1897, they had orders worth $6,000, and a year later, that figure had grown to $20,000. By 1899, the company's share capital was $30,000, equivalent to over $1 million today. Despite this success, Henry was already thinking about his next big challenge: creating the most luxurious car in the world. But first, Henry had another matter to attend to. With the success of their first business, both Henry and Ernest felt they could finally focus on their personal lives. The two friends were so close that they ended up marrying a pair of sisters, Edith and Minnie Punt. Now business partners and family, their bond grew even stronger. The success of their electrical goods company allowed Henry to pursue even more ambitious mechanical projects. At the time, cars were rare, but Henry developed a keen interest in them. He purchased a used 1901 two-cylinder French car, which was in such poor condition that it wouldn't even start. By the next day, Henry had it running, and he continued to improve on its faults. Eventually, Henry decided to build his own car. In 1904, he custom-built 3 cars, named the Royce 10. The first car was for himself, the second for his business partner Ernest, and the third was sold to a man so impressed by the vehicle that he introduced Henry to a car dealer named Charles Rolls. When Charles Rolls met Henry Royce, neither could have imagined the incredible journey they were about to embark on together. No one expected Charles Rolls and Henry Royce to become business partners. Their backgrounds couldn't have been more different. Henry Royce was a self-made man, while Charles Rolls was born into privilege. Yet, their shared passion for cars led to the creation of the iconic Rolls-Royce brand. Born in 1877 to the first Baron and Lady Langaddock, Charles Rolls had a fascination with mechanics from a young age, earning the nickname Dirty Rolls. He studied mechanical and applied science at Cambridge University, then worked on a yacht, and later with the London and Northwestern Railway. Charles was one of the first in the UK to own a car. In 1896, at just 18, he bought a Peugeot Phaeton in Paris. His love for cars led his father to fund a car dealership, CS Rolls & Covers, which specialized in importing French cars for English customers. Rolls quickly gained a reputation in the motorhead community, even holding an unofficial land speed record of 83 miles per hour, a remarkable feat at the time. A daredevil, he thrived on speed, competing in the perilous 1903 Paris to Madrid race, where 34 people lost their lives. Despite the dangers, Rolls continued racing. Charles was also an aviator, making over 170 hot air balloon flights, and becoming the second person in Great Britain to obtain a pilot's license. He flew more than 200 times in a Wright Flyer aircraft. Despite their different upbringings, when Rolls first met Royce, he was intrigued but hesitant. He favored 3- and 4-cylinder cars and wasn't initially impressed by Royce's 2-cylinder vehicle. However, after trying the Royce 10, Charles was blown away by its quality and knew they had to work together. That night, Rolls drove back to London in a borrowed Royce car, woke his business partner, and excitedly declared, "I just found the greatest motor engineer in the world." In December 1904, Charles Rolls and Henry Royce officially formed Rolls-Royce. Despite their differences, Henry was born into poverty and worked for everything he had, while Charles, at 27, had lived a life of privilege. They each brought essential skills to the partnership. Henry, 41, had years of experience building electronics and mechanical objects with precision. Charles, more than just a car enthusiast, was a shrewd businessman. He leveraged his connections in the upper class, politics, media, and even royalty to attract customers who could afford their luxury cars. Together, they were the perfect team, complementing each other's strengths and creating an unstoppable partnership. In 1904, they unveiled their first vehicle, the Rolls-Royce 10 HP, at the Paris Salon, later known as the Paris Motor Show. Sold at Charles's dealership for $395, worth tens of thousands today, only 16 were made. In 2007, one sold at auction for $3.2 million. Their second car, the Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost, released in 1906, had all its metal parts coated in silver and aluminum. After a 15,000-mile endurance run, they showcased its quiet engine by placing a cup of water on it without spilling a drop. Dubbed the best car in the world, the Silver Ghost remains one of the most valuable cars. In 2005, one owner insured their Silver Ghost for $35 million. As Rolls-Royce gained fame for its prestigious cars, Charles pushed Henry to build an airplane engine due to his passion for flying. Henry refused, focusing on cars. With the company's success, Charles devoted more time to flying, eventually resigning as technical director to focus solely on planes. He preferred flying, saying, "There are no policemen in the air." In 1909, Charles bought a Wright Flyer, and, a year later, became the first person to make a non-stop flight across the English Channel and back. earning him the title, the greatest hero of the day. Tragically, in 1910, Charles became the first Briton to die in a plane crash at just 32 years old. A year after losing his partner, Henry's health began to decline. Years of poor eating and lack of sleep took their toll, and he could no longer work in the Rolls-Royce factory. Despite his poor health, Henry continued sketching design ideas from his bedside. Though Henry Royce resisted making airplane engines for years, World War I forced his hand. In 1914, Rolls-Royce produced the Rolls-Royce Eagle engine, powering half of all Allied planes and marking the brand's entry into aviation. By 1921, demand for Rolls-Royce cars was so high that there was a 3-year backlog. To meet it, a new factory was opened in Springfield, Massachusetts. Over the next decade, the American factory produced 2,144 cars, a modest number, but a testament to Rolls-Royce's commitment to quality over quantity. Even today, each vehicle is handmade, taking up to 6 months to complete. In 1930, Henry Royce was awarded the Order of the British Empire and knighted as a baronet. He passed away 3 years later at age 70, but his dedication never wavered. On his deathbed, he sketched an adjustable shock absorber, instructing his nurse to send it to the factory, though he died before it could be delivered. Charles Rolls and Henry Royce left behind a lasting legacy. Rolls-Royce continued producing vehicles long after their deaths, and today, the brand remains synonymous with luxury, valued at over $7 billion. The Rolls-Royce story teaches us that, regardless of your background, with hard work and determination, you can achieve greatness. As Henry Royce once said, "Strive for perfection, take the best that exists and make it better. If it doesn't exist, create it." This mindset is also reflected in J.P. Morgan, America's first overlord. Like Henry Royce's relentless pursuit of perfection, Morgan was driven by an insatiable ambition to dominate the financial world. His strategic prowess and immense wealth allowed him to wield significant influence and reshape industries. If you found the story of Rolls-Royce compelling, you'll be intrigued by my video on J.P. Morgan. It's the perfect follow-up to understand how one man's vision transformed the American financial landscape. Just click the thumbnail on the screen to dive into the story of Morgan's rise and his impact on America's economy. See you there. Cheers.